Okay, so, and I know there's a separate video on this, but you know, what the heck, we'll throw it in here. So we want to cut 20 threads per inch. So we find that on this, and this one does not have a Norton style quick change box, which is fine. I don't cut enough threads to make it matter. But anyway, we need 20 threads, which shows I need a 60 and a 60 on my change gears. Right now it's got a 30 and a 60, so that does not fall in that column. So we got to change the gears, and I'll show how to do that really quick because it doesn't take long. Very first thing to do, turn the power disconnect off. I have a good friend that he ran his fingers between those gears once with the lathe turned on. I know he's watching this, so thinking of you, Randy. So yeah, definitely not something you want to do. All right. And I already pulled the two thumb nuts off, which are these guys. So we've got to swap this out, which is a 30 tooth. We've got to swap it for a 60. So let me grab a couple wrenches and we'll get that done. We need a 16 and an 18. There's an 18 and a 16. So we need those. And I believe 5 millimeter, oh, 6 millimeter for the banjo. So that'll work. First thing we'll do is, and actually I put the gearbox in low. That way I got mechanical advantage, and it doesn't tend to move very much. So we'll just take this one off. If it'll come. And I'm going to turn it so the keyway is facing up so that we don't lose the key as easily. It slides off. Simple enough. Now we have to we need more space, so loosen that up a little. We loosen the banjo. And whoops, actually we don't need to loosen the middle one. Sorry. Need to loosen the banjo down here. Oh, that's a 16. Loosen the banjo down here and here. Give us some room for our gear. So here's our other 60 tooth gear. It has 60 written on it, so we're good. Just line him up with the keyway. Slide it on. And of course, if you're not doing this on camera, it goes pretty quick. And give this a snug. Doesn't have to be super tight. So, and of course, the trick is getting the right amount of clearance in here. And what I like to do is just get a piece of plain old notebook paper, fold it in half, and this is roughly 8 thousandths, I think. For most papers, about 4 thousandths of an inch. So this gives me exactly 8 or 0.2 millimeters. And I just stick that between the gears and push in until it folds, and then just snug everything down. And that generally gives me the right clearance the first time, and I don't have to mess with it, because you definitely want clearance in there, especially as the machine runs. The gears get bigger because of expansion, and you do not want it binding. So got good clearance. It'll make a racket. So I'm gonna lubricate it a little bit and keep fingers far away now that the power's on. This is just some whey oil, which actually works pretty good. My oiler's about empty. But that'll be good. Of course, you can hear them running. We got a little spray, but that's fine. That's fine. It's going to go in the belts no matter what. So. And I just broke my own rule. Should not have stuck my hand in there with the power turned on, even though it's turned off. So we're good on that. We'll just put our cover on. All right. So put the extra gear away. All right, so now we'll just move the levers to get 20 threads per inch. So our chart shows that we need the 60 and 60, which we have, and we want, and then so let's see here, that doesn't show up. Let me zoom out a little bit. Okay, so we've got these 4 controls. So for 20 threads per inch, we need this one on U. So we need U, 1, and A, C. So A and C. So that should give us 20 threads per inch. So we'll take a scratch pass and see where we are. Let me move the camera. Okay, I thought the camera was on, but it wasn't. So anyway, I'm gonna catch up a little bit. So this is the threading dial, and it's off for a reason. Is typically I keep it disconnected from the lead screw just to reduce wear. And so I went to engage it, and then I just put my fingers on this just to make sure that it was engaged, and the dial spun quite freely, and the gear was engaged, so that was a huge problem. So I took it off to see what was the matter, see if there was a sheared key or something. There's no keyway on this, so the gear just goes on here and is held on just by the friction of the nut, which is, okay. There's no real load on it. It's not what I would choose, and I'm not going to try to put a keyway in it or anything today, but so I took this and I wiped it down a little bit and cleaned it. And one thing that's pretty goofy, and I tested it a little bit, but so it's got an oil, what do you call these things? Dang it, an oiling point. Anyway, a ball check. Anyway, if you look on the shaft, there's nowhere for the oil to come out anywhere. So I'm not quite sure what you're actually oiling with this, but you can see if we put the oil can up against it and give it a pull, oil seeps out around there because of the pressure, but there's nothing underneath. So that's really, really lame. So ideally I would drill this and cross drill it, and maybe at some point I will, but I'm not going to take this out to do it right now. Maybe we'll make that another project. So anyway, I've wiped it down, and this is definitely one of the reasons that it's I should have taken this all apart when I first cleaned up the lathe, and I didn't because it seemed okay. Obviously that was another thing that didn't get the fit and finish of the Chinese stuff just isn't all that good. The Taiwanese stuff is definitely better in that regard. Anyway, we're going to put some oil on this and put it all back together and tighten it up, and it should work. Should be all right. But it turns fine in there. And one of the things is I had actually scratched a mark in here next to this dot because the lines never quite lined up. Well, now of course because it was slipping, that's why. So we've it's got these 2 bushings that go here, then our gear, which is just straight cut, goes on. To pardon the bandages, it's so dry. My fingers are actually split and bleeding, so I just covered them up. So anyway, that goes on there, and then it's just going to have a friction fit. And I just took this nut off with my fingers. It wasn't even remotely tight. And of course the tricky part is there's no good way to hold this other than just the friction in my hand. So I'm going to get looks like about a 14 millimeter and get it as tight as I can by hand. It is 14, good. So maybe I can stick a little. You know what, I think I do have a little piece of brass up here. See if we can stick that in there. use that as a stop. There we go. A little piece of brass. Now it won't turn. And it definitely is much, much better. So, little lube on here. Stick it back on the lathe and actually be able to get started on our threading. Okay, so there's a good lesson on why never to take anything for granted with your tools. Let me zoom out here. So this just threads on here with a single bolt and a spacer. It just screws right into the side. Because normally I keep it disengaged just to reduce lead screw wear. But, so there's that. Now one of the interesting bits is where this line's going to line up with the once the half nut's engaged. Alright, so that's good. It should. We don't have any slop in there, that's good. So let's see here, if I engage the half nut. See if we can actually get it to line up on our, what do you know, we got lucky. It lines up on our existing scratch mark. So I'm going to call that good. We don't have to redo that. So that's close enough. So anyway, for 20 threads on this lathe, it shows on our chart over here, and it's an even number, and so it should divide out fine. Let's see. It says I can use any whole number 1 through 4. So it says 1-4, so we should be good. So it should be 1, 2, 3, or 4. But I typically just use the same number every time. So let's take a scratch pass on this and see if we got everything set up right. Because, you know, as the previous little bit showed, we cannot take it for granted that it's going to work right. The compound on this is already set at 29.5 degrees. But I typically keep it locked off, which it is right now. So we have to unlock the compound. We can move that now. And then I'm going to set a 0 on that. And then we'll come over here and set a 0 on the cross slide as well. And just turn that up till we just touch. Okay, we are just touching on that, so I'm going to 0 the DRO, and I'm going to 0 the actual dial on the cross slide. It's a little easier that way. And so we're just going to let it take a scratch pass. I'm just going to wait till it comes around, and I'm going to use 1 on the dial, which should be fine. Okay, let me get the thread pitch gauge, make sure that that's right. Alright, here's our 20 pitch. And that lines up exactly right. So the lathe is configured for 20 threads. I got plenty of half 13s, but I don't see, at least not anywhere handy, a half 20 nut. So when we go to test it, I'm actually going to try to thread this on there. So we'll start cutting and get it done. So it should be about right when this gets down to the bottom of the notch. So bring this back into 0. This is there. Get about 5/1000ths on the compound. A little WD-40, which works pretty darn well for this. And here we go. One nice thing about having a lead out groove is not having to pull off quite as fast. So we'll take these first few cuts at 5/1000ths deep, and once it gets a little deeper we'll have to slow down, but not too bad. Pulled off a hair too soon. Alright. Getting a little deeper. I'm going to cut back and go 3/1000ths this pass. It's starting to look like an actual thread, so we'll give it, I'll take another 3 and then we'll check it. I don't want to go too deep, but I'm sure that's not enough yet. Okay. I very much doubt that our gun will thread on yet, but it's best to check and see. Well, it starts. It's a little snug, but it starts, so we're close. We'll take another couple thousandths. Spring pass, it might be good enough. Going back into 0. We'll take 2/1000ths. Put a little lube on there. Take a spring pass, let it clean up a little. I'm just actually going to touch the outside of this thread with a file lightly. Just any burrs that are up on top. Feels good. Take our spring pass. Let's see if our blowgun thread's on all the way now. It should be pretty close. And it's still a little snug. Not bad though. So we'll take another 2/1000ths. And another spring pass and see how we do. Alright, we'll take a spring pass as soon as the dial comes around. Alright, it's our spring pass. Still taking quite a bit. And it's a little rough. We'll just touch it with the file. And let's see if this fits. I want this to just screw in nicely so the O-ring will do the sealing. Oh, that is just perfect. It's not sloppy. That'll work just fine. So all we got to do is cut it off, and then make the tube fit in there. So we can call that good on the thread.